Okay, I'm going to be making the smaller of the two masks from our pattern that the link is down below in the description. For that, you're going to start with a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of fabric at a minimum for this. If you were making a bunch of these masks, you could just do one long strip for it. You're going to fold it together with the right sides touching. So now I have a 6-inch by 12-inch piece. And I've got my pattern piece cut out, and I'm going to lay that down and pin it in place. You want to kind of have it as close to the edges as possible. There's not a lot of room in between, so trying to minimize scrap here. You're going to trace the pattern piece on your fabric. Once you finish tracing that, you are going to flip it over and trace it again on the other side. For tracing it, I'm using a ballpoint pen, but you can use a regular pencil, pen, felt tip marker, um, anything just you want a narrower point to it. You can also use chalk or a dressmaker's pencil. Once you've got both of them traced out, then you're going to want to pin the center of those with 2 pins on each piece to hold it together while you cut it out. Then I'm just going to use fabric scissors and cut out my pieces. You can also use a rotary cutter to do this if you have that. Okay, now you have 2 matching sets with 2 pieces each, right sides facing together, and you want to keep the pins in it for right now while we sew the curved edge. So we're going to sew along this curved edge, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have a foot that has a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's a quilting foot, and that's what I'm going to use, but you can use your regular presser foot for this as well. You just want to make sure you're doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance on it. And I'm going to start by back stitching to secure it, and then I'm just going to go along that curve on both pieces. And then back stitch at the end to secure as well. And do the same thing for your other piece. And then you want to trim off those and the threads. Now you can remove your pins from both of the pieces. And you're going to press open your seam allowance just using your fingers and your fingernails. So I just put my fingers in there and I kind of press it open. And you're going to do the same thing to the other one. Once you have both of them pressed open, you want to lay them down so that they mirror each other. And you're going to grab the ends of each of them and put them together so they're right sides together. And line up those corners and line up that edge and then pin that edge in place. Now I kind of flip one the other direction so that they're both pieces are going the same direction. and I adjust it to line up those seams and make sure the edge is aligned. And now we're going to stitch around the outside edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to stitch all edges except for the edge that has the pin on it. So starting by backstitching to secure it, and then working my way around the entire mask. And as I go, I'm going to make little adjustments just to make sure that my edges are lined up and that the center seams are lined up as well. And when I get to the corner, I'm going to stop a 1/4 inch short of the corner. I have my needle down and rotate the piece, and then go to the next corner, stopping a 1/4 inch short, needle down, rotate your piece. And I'm going to backstitch to secure. And so that end with the pin is still left open. Trim off your ends of your threads. And remove your pin. So now we're going to turn it right side out. And I use an old mechanical pencil with no lead in it to push out those corners. Now you're going to kind of finger press the seams again. So I roll it back and forth between my fingers to get the seam to be a little bit more crisp and tighter. And I'm just going to work my way all the way around the mask, doing that, rolling it, pressing it down with my fingers to get it nice and smooth. If you're making a lot of these masks, I recommend not getting too precious with them. That's part of why I'm not getting the iron out and ironing these. They just need to do their job. They need to hold up well, um, but they don't have to be perfect. We just need to get them done and get them off to the people that need them. If you're making a lot of these, I would recommend doing one step at a time. So cut out all your fabric all at once and then move on to the next step of sewing the curved edges together and then start piecing them together. So work one step at a time and go through your entire batch. That'll be faster for production. So now I'm going to roll that short end in. You want it to be a little bit more than a 1/4 inch because our seam allowance is 1/4 inch, so we need it to be folded in just a little bit more than that so the stitch can catch it. And again, I'm going to use my 1/4 inch presser foot, but if you have a edge stitching foot, you could also use that for this. The edge stitching foot's just going to go a little closer to the edge than the 1/4 inch presser foot does. And you're going to do a top stitch all the way around the perimeter of the piece. So I'm starting about a 1/4 inch out from the edge, and I reverse to secure my stitch, and then stop 1/4 inch before the edge, make that turn with the needle down, and go all the way around like that. And once you come to the end, back stitch to secure. And now trim off your thread ends. All right, we're almost done. I'm going to switch to my regular presser foot. And I'm going to fold down the short edge so it's a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to sew it with a 3/8 seam allowance from that folded edge over. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, 3/8 seam allowance from that folded edge over to the needle. And this is creating the pockets that our elastic is going to slip through. Trim your thread ends. All right, so I'm using 1/4 inch braided elastic, and you want to cut 2 pieces to be 11.5 inches long. You could even do 12. These are made so that they could be adjusted, so if they're longer, that's not a big deal, but you don't want to do shorter than 11.5 inches. And then I'm going to use fray check on the edges of the elastic. You could also use like a craft glue or something. You just want to put something on it to keep the elastic from fraying. And after you put that on, you want to set it aside and let it dry. I'm going to use a little safety pin, put it through the end, and this is to thread the elastic through those pockets. Do the same thing on the other side. And you want to take the ends of your elastic, get it so that it's lined up and there's not any twists in the elastic, and put a knot in it with about a 1/4 inch tail. I'm not tying the knots too tight, so that way it can be adjusted. Whoever's wearing it can move the knots in or out a little bit so that it can fit them better. And that's it. Now you have a fabric mask. It's done. Go out and make hundreds more and donate them to people that need them.